Hoping for a fold here, guys. We really are rooting for a fold. And this week's episode of Bro or Pro, we 3-bet sevens. We get a very favorable flop for our range, not for our hand. And we decide to go for the old triple barrel bluff. Get all the money in by the river. And let's see if we play this hand like a bro or like a pro. All right, so this hand starts off with a raise from the hijack and I 3-bet from the cutoff. Let me just double check my preflop ranges, make sure that I haven't gone wrong to start the hand. All right, so this tool's simple preflop. It's really easy to use, actually. Basically, I just click the action that happened here. So under the gun folded, hijack bet, and then I get to see my 3-bet range here. Looks like 7's. It's a very rare 3-bet. So it looks like here, if you see, I should be calling about 20% of the time. I should be folding about 70% of the time, and I should be 3-betting about 11% of the time. Okay, so the 3-bet seems perfectly reasonable. I actually rolled high on my RNG. Anyways, in game, you can see on screen it's a 94. That being said, I doubt I checked my RNG in game. I probably just like clicked 3-bet. So just something for me to keep in mind, I guess, is I'm probably 3-betting a little bit too aggressively here with 7's. But anyways, moving on. Let's check out the flop. Probably just range bet this board here on table 4. Okay, so in game, I mentioned I'll probably just range bet this board. So basically what I'm thinking in game here is that this board's just really good for me, right? My 3-bet range has aces, queens, kings, ace, king, ace, queen, all these hands that end up being very strong on this board. So when my range is crushing like that, I think it's probably fine to simplify to range betting. But let's go ahead and let's find out what Pio has to say about that strategy. All right, so we briefly went over this in my last video, but if you're not familiar with Pio's interface at all, it's really not as intimidating as it might look. Basically, here is the sort of 13 by 13 classic no limit hold'em hand grid. And essentially in here, the colors of the boxes represent the actions you should be taking with these certain hands. So I input each player's ranges here. So this is going to be the hijack's 3-bet defense range when facing a 3-bet from the cutoff. So I don't give him the option to lead here, so he doesn't donk the flop ever. So green just means check. So this might be a little bit more illustrative. Here is cutoff's range. This is my range in this spot. And here you can see like the pink or orange or whatever color this is means bet, and the green means check. And then basically the proportion of the square that is that color is the percentage of the time that you're taking that action. So essentially, like if I highlight here ace king suited, off on the right side of the screen there, you can see like the bigger squares. The squares are magnified a bit. And you could say it says I'm betting 32.7%. That's my bet size. I'm betting that bet size almost 90% of the time here, and there's just 10% check. And if I have ace king of hearts, I'm just pure betting. So the percentage next to the action there is going to be the bet size, and then the percentage next to that is going to be the frequency at which that action is taken. So here, another thing you can do here in Pio is check out the EV and the equity of each player's ranges. So in the video I mentioned I'm probably just range betting this board. The reason I sort of was thinking that this board could be simplified to range bet was that the board just smashes the the cutoff's 3-bet range, and isn't so good for the hijack's 3-bet defense range facing the cutoff 3-bet. So if we actually look here, we can look at the equity for the out of position player. The out of position player, in this case the hijack, his total equity is like 32%. And my equity here is 67%. So obviously I'm entitled equity-wise to a massive percentage of the pot here. So this board really is very, very favorable for us. And EV is actually even slightly more favorable for us, and that's pretty typical here. You notice my equity is 67, but my EV is 70, so 70% of the pot. Basically all that's going to say is that I'm going to over-realize my equity because I have position. I have a range advantage. We're just going to over-realize our equity as far as EV goes. So I can actually change this view to show me the EV of each of the strategies. And as you can see here, like the EV of bet is, let's say for here, for ace queen suited, the EV of bet is 76.1% of the pot. The EV of check is 76.1% of the pot. So basically, one thing to note is like when Pio, as you can see, all of these hands are mixing bet or check at some frequency. Whenever that's happening, you just know that the EV of both actions is very similar, approximately the exact same. Pio would never be like taking some action 25% of the time if it were lower EV option than the other action. So you can rest assured that if Pio is mixing these actions, they're going to be the same EV. So here it basically looks like no matter what we do, we can't make a mistake with our range as long as we either bet small or check. Um, that being said, sometimes when this happens, I like to look at how villain is meant to respond and determine then which part of the tree I think villain will make more mistakes on. So let's see how villain's meant to react if we do go with a 33% pot size bet here. All right, so if I do choose to bet 33% pot here on the flop, looks like villain is meant to find raises with like 25% of his range here. Looking at some of these ranges, a lot of them look pretty unnatural. For instance, Queen Jack suited, pocket jacks, King 10 being raised at King Jack being raised at this high frequency. Those don't look all that natural to me. Even like, I mean, I'd be surprised if Ace Jack or Ace Queen's two pair, okay, King Queen's two pair, okay, but I'd be kind of surprised if any of these hands down here are getting raised. Jack 10 sure is the straight, right? But 10s, jacks, Queen Jack, King 10, Ace 10, Ace Jack. I'd be very surprised to see these hands getting raised at this frequency in pool. So just looking at that, like that's already a big blunder, at least theoretically, that pool is going to be making against the small bet size here on the flop. Let's actually see what's going on. Let's see why they do get to raise a hand like Queen Jack suited here. So let's see how we're meant to react should they choose to raise. Okay, looks like we fold some of our worst aces. Okay. So raising a hand like Queen Jack in their shoes sort of it gets us to fold some better hands, some ace, like Ace 9, Ace 8, Ace 7, not a ton of better hands, and we do have to fold these lower hands down here, but these hands don't really have that much equity anyways. So it's kind of surprising to me that they're raising all those pair plus gut shots when our continuation range is just so strong. But that's interesting. Anyways, let's go back to the flop here. And it does look like we also have the option to check with just about any of our hands. So let's say we do check. Let's actually see what their strategy will be on various turns here. So Pio has this really cool feature where we can look at their strategy on various runouts. Okay, so it looks like if a queen, king, or ace comes, they are meant to never bet. These squares are just pure green. They just say check 100%, which makes sense, right? Again, this board is just all over our range, right? So we actually make a ton of full houses on a queen, a king, or an ace. On a jack or a 10, it looks like they get to do some small betting here. I suppose they check back. I imagine a lot of this betting is going to be like with their straights. So they make a lot of straights on 10s and jacks. They make some two pair. So that makes sense. And it's a 4 straight that would be on the board, so they aren't going to be using super large bet sizes. And then it looks like if any other card comes, it looks like they're going to be rarely betting, but when they do, they're going to be over betting. So I think pool is probably going to misplay this branch of the tree as well. So I think like no matter what we choose on a flop here, we are going to be A, playing theoretically sound poker, and B, probably putting our opponents in a place where they're going to be making a lot of mistakes. So again, like I guess it doesn't really matter what we do on this board. That may just always be the case when the board just smashes your range way harder than it smashes your opponents. It's going to be really hard for you to make many mistakes on those types of boards, other than maybe like checking down like a hand with no showdown value or something crazy like that. Okay, so in game, what I actually did here was I bet third pot and villain calls. And let's go check out the turn and see what happens. I think we actually keep betting. Our
range is doing so well. We need to find bluffs. I think underpairs make good bluffs. I think sevens is fine to bluff. It's probably at the bottom of our range on this board.
Okay, so the two of diamonds comes down, villain checks, and now action's on us. In the video, I said like I think it's fine to keep betting. This range is just really good for us, and it's gonna be tough for us to find bluffs. We're probably gonna have to bluff with underpairs. I think 7 makes a good bluff. I think all of that actually makes a lot of sense, right? It's pretty hard for us to have a worse hand than 7's at this point. Yeah, so 7's is like at the bottom of our 3-bet range, and then on this board, pretty much all of our hands that would 3-bet interact with the board in some way. As you can see, like we just have so many pairs, pairs plus flush draws, or pairs plus straight draws, 2-pair combos, trips, or I'm sorry, sets. I know, yeah, we just have so many hands, so many strong hands on this board that in order to find bluffs, we're gonna have to be bluffing seemingly surprising hands like pocket 7's, pocket 8's, pocket 9's. I'd consider all of these bluffs at this point, right? So looking here at Pio, it does look like we do get to bet 7's at a decent frequency here on the 2 of diamonds. That being said, just because Pio does it doesn't mean we get to do it in real life. So we should actually go and see what types of hands villain's meant to be folding to our bets and see if it seems reasonable. And if it doesn't, then maybe we need to adjust our strategy. So let's go ahead and see what villain's strategy is meant to be. So when we bet turn, he's meant to start folding some of his weaker ace X. I think that seems perfectly reasonable. I think Poole would be able to do that here. He's meant to call ace 10, ace jack still. So pairs plus gutters, king 10 with he's meant to fold all of his king 10 unless he has the flush draw. He's meant to be folding jacks, pure fold jacks, pure fold 10s. Yeah, I mean, I guess the strategy seems pretty reasonable. I could see the Poole playing. I could see villains playing this strategy. Pretty straightforward, actually, right? Maybe they start folding like queen jack here, king 10, ace 10 at a higher frequency. But overall, like I don't see Poole making any massive mistakes against the strategy here. So I think it seems perfectly reasonable to think that Poole will pretty naturally play the right strategy here, so we can just go ahead and follow Pio's guidelines for our bets. So I think we can just follow Pio's guidelines for our strategy here on the turn, which is betting 7's at a very high frequency here. So we do bet, he does call, and let's go check out the river.
Okay, now I think we jam. Hoping for a fold here, guys. We really are rooting for a fold.
Okay, so in game I say, oh, now I think we just jam once the queen of diamonds comes down. I think what I was thinking in game was like, we just made a bunch of full houses with our range. 7's is pretty much at the bottom of our range, right? We basically don't have any showdown value with 7's. I think checking would just be for 0% of the pot. So I don't think that it is worth a whole lot of chips checking here. And I just think that we just have all the strong hands here and villain just doesn't. Okay, so it does look like the most used bet sizing here on the river is going to be an all-in jam. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Like on this river, we have a bunch of full houses, some trips, and then we have like 2-pair hands that just kind of want to check down. So we're going to be betting really polarized here on the river, right? We're going to be betting our full houses, and then we're going to be betting some bluffs, and we'll be checking down our medium strength hands. And interesting to note, like medium strength hands on this board are like ace king, right? Top two pair, that's gonna be a medium strength hand. Even king queen gets checked quite a high frequency. That's interesting. We'll have to see what's going on there. That's a full house, right? So it does look like 7's gets to overbet here at some frequency. That being said, just because Pio's doing it doesn't mean we get to do it. Let's see if villain's strategy against an overbet, against a jam here, is something natural. Okay, so if we jam, villain's meant to be folding ace king at a pretty good clip. there's something going on with the suit blockers, but ace king should be folded. Um, when it has a diamond, apparently it should be folded, and it should be called when it doesn't have a diamond. That's kind of counterintuitive to me. But I guess that's how it is. Ace queen is getting folded at some frequency. So pool's never folding ace queen here. So that's very interesting. Like ace of clubs, queen of spades is a pure fold here. Um, that makes me think, what else is getting folded here? Ace jack, that seems reasonable. Ace 10 seems reasonable. King queen is getting folded quite a bit when they have it. Queen jack. This seems to me like a spot where they're going to be underfolding. I don't see them. I don't see villains folding any full houses here. King queen, ace queen, queen jack. So if they're underfolding, that's going to make the EV of jam with our bluffs go down quite a bit. So here it looks like EV jam is exactly 0. Pio super balanced, so it was able to find like the complete indifference point with our bluffs. But I think in reality, in order to achieve this 0 EV here, like villain has to be folding full houses, and I just don't think that that's happening in pool at all. So I think jam might actually be pretty bad here, at least in this reality that Pio's created. I think potentially in the real world, like villain shows up here too often with like ace jack, ace 10. Hands like that they should have already shed on the turn. So actually, you know what? They have those hands. Yeah, so I think EV of jam probably just goes down quite a bit. If villain's meant to be folding full houses to make our bluff 0 EV, then if he calls those full houses, our bluff becomes minus EV pretty quickly. And I think it seems kind of crazy to expect pool to be folding full houses in this spot. So that being said, I actually don't think that this jam is great. I think that maybe we just, I don't actually know. Like it's tough to say like, hey, you have to have bluffs here. If our bluffs are break even when pool's folding full houses, I'm not sure that I should have any bluffs here in practice. So I guess let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is a spot we need to have bluffs? Do you think there's something up with this equilibrium where maybe like pool has more ace X than they should by the time we get here on the river, or pool maybe just has a weaker range overall by the time we get here and makes this bluff a bit higher EV? Like if pool shows up here with like ace 9, ace 8 more often than they should, and they're going to fold to jams, then obviously that will bring the EV of jam back up with a bluff like 7's. Because if we get them to fold an ace, obviously we're doing great. So I'm not really sure what to think of this hand. As far as theoretically, it looks like we played the hand well. It looks like everything, we're all in agreement with PioSolver. But as far as in practice, pretty tough to say. Like I said, anytime you get to a spot on the river where villain needs to be folding full houses in order for your bluff to break even, that just seems like in practice that's going to be a negative EV bluff. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Let me know how you guys like these videos. This is like my 4th one in the series or something. I feel like I'm getting better at them. But I'm open to feedback. I'm open to criticism. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks. If you liked the video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. All of that stuff really helps me out with the algorithm, helps me sort of grow my channel a little bit, which is one of my main goals at the moment. So I'm going to keep producing content, hopefully getting better at it, hopefully making better stuff. But if you can do one of those 3 things, like, subscribe, comment, that'll really help me out. So thanks for stopping by. We'll be back with another episode next week.